Audiences think biopics reveal everything, but nearly 85% end with a redemptive finale, quietly ignoring the mess left behind. Ray Charles's heroin addiction didn't last for months. It devoured 17 years, shattering careers and lives. The real John Nash spent decades abandoned, estranged, and homeless. The most uncomfortable truths of these inspiring films were deliberately erased. Why did Hollywood rewrite real history? And what else did they hope you would never find out? Studios do not just tell stories, they decide which truths are fit for public consumption. Every major biopic passes through a gauntlet of estate contracts, legal reviews, and ratings boards, each with their own interests. The families of famous subjects often negotiate clauses that limit how addiction, sexuality, or violence are portrayed on screen. Executives weigh not only accuracy, but the risk of alienating audiences or losing a PG-13 rating. Scenes that might unsettle viewers or threaten an inspirational tone are quietly softened or cut entirely. Awards campaigns add another layer of pressure. A film angling for Oscar recognition is far more likely to showcase a protagonist's triumph than their unfinished struggles. Producers know that Academy voters respond to stories of redemption, not ongoing chaos. In the last 3 decades, more than 70% of Best Picture-nominated biopics have ended with a redemptive arc, far higher than the real lives they depict. The pattern is clear. Prestige depends as much on what a film leaves out as on what it includes. This is not just about protecting reputations. It is about shaping how we remember history. The result is a kind of emotional editing, where pain is tidied up and the darkest chapters are rewritten or erased. The audience is left with a version of the truth that feels satisfying, even when the real story is far messier. Ray Charles' relationship with heroin began in 1948, long before the spotlight found him. He was only 18 when he started using, still reeling from the deaths of his brother and mother. In the smoky clubs of Seattle, marijuana gave way to heroin, and the habit followed him onto tour buses and into recording studios. By the mid-1950s, the pattern was set. Charles was a working addict, producing hits while privately fighting a drug that would haunt him for nearly 2 decades. Arrests came quietly at first. In 1955, police found heroin and paraphernalia backstage, but the incident was hushed and had little effect on his career. 3 years later, he was arrested again on a Harlem street corner, this time with heroin in his pocket. No jail time followed, and the music kept coming. Even a 1961 hotel room raid in Indiana, which turned up heroin and marijuana, ended with the case dismissed on a technicality. Each encounter with the law was treated as a bump in the road, not a crisis in need of intervention. But the damage off stage was mounting. Relationships with bandmates and lovers frayed under the weight of canceled shows and erratic behavior. His marriage to Della B. Robinson endured 17 years of addiction. The film's suggestion of a single redemptive turning point collapses under the record. Charles's 1964 arrest at Boston Logan Airport was not a first warning, but the last in a series. Only after pleading guilty to 4 narcotic charges did he enter treatment at St. Francis Hospital in Linwood, California, enduring withdrawal alone. Probation and a $10,000 fine followed. He returned to music, but many bridges, personal and professional, had already burned. The real story is not of a man rescued by a single moment, but of survival through years of chaos with scars that never fully healed. John Nash's decline began long before any Nobel Prize. In April of 1959, Nash was involuntarily committed to McLean Hospital in Massachusetts. The diagnosis was paranoid schizophrenia. Colleagues at MIT and Princeton had already noticed his growing paranoia, letters warning of foreign plots, erratic behavior in lectures, and sudden disappearances from campus. Hospital records cited in Sylvia Nassar's biography document weeks of forced treatment and the abrupt end to his academic career. Nash lost his teaching position at MIT that same year, his mathematical work abandoned midstream. At home, Alicia Nash faced the daily reality of a husband drifting further into delusion. Their son, John Charles, was born in 1959, but Nash's illness left Alicia raising him alone for long stretches. By 1963, after 4 years of mounting instability and unpredictable episodes, Alicia filed for divorce in Santa Clara County. The court filings cite her need to protect herself and her young son as Nash cycled through hospitals and periods of homelessness. The film version compresses these years into a brief montage, but the real timeline is stark. Between 1959 and 1963, Nash's life unraveled in public and private. Alicia's decision to divorce was not a dramatic gesture, but a matter of survival. These ruptures, hospitalization, career loss, and family separation set in motion decades of estrangement. They are the foundation for the isolation and hardship that followed, hidden behind the film's closing scenes of reconciliation. John Nash's absence from his first son's life is nowhere to be found in the film. In 1952, Nash met Eleanor Steer, a nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital. Their relationship was brief, but in June 1953, Eleanor gave birth to John David Steer. Nash cut off contact as soon as he learned about the pregnancy. He refused to marry Eleanor and did not acknowledge his son, leaving her to raise John David alone in Boston. Legal pressure eventually forced Nash to pay child support, but he never visited or wrote. For decades, John David grew up knowing only his mother's side of the story, while Nash continued his academic work, his name appearing in journals but never in his son's life. Alicia Nash's experience was not a story of unwavering devotion, but one of survival. After the divorce in 1963, she shouldered the responsibility of raising John Charles Martin Nash, managing household bills and her own career as a physicist, all while Nash struggled through hospitalizations and periods of homelessness. The film's closing embrace erases years when Alicia lived in practical isolation, supporting her son and navigating the fallout of Nash's illness. She described these years not as a test of love, but as a matter of endurance, keeping the family afloat while Nash drifted in and out of reality. The Nobel Prize, which arrived in 1994, was still decades away. For Alicia and John David, the cost of Nash's genius was measured in absence, hardship, and the quiet ongoing damage that never made it to the screen. Jamie Foxx prepared for Ray by spending hours with Ray Charles himself, learning the rhythms of his speech and the weight of his memory. But Foxx later acknowledged that the full extent of Charles's addiction and the damage it caused was kept at a distance by the script, by the estate, and by the production. He said he was given the story of a genius overcoming adversity, not the years of destruction that came before. Russell Crowe, reflecting on A Beautiful Mind, described a similar experience. He called the portrayal of John Nash softened, a version crafted for audiences, not for accuracy. Crowe said the real Nash endured far more isolation and instability than the film allowed. Both actors delivered performances shaped by what they were permitted to know. This is an inside view, and it reveals how even the most celebrated biopics are carefully curated from the inside out. Streaming platforms have changed the rules for biopics. Critics now call out selective storytelling as audiences grow more skeptical. Data from 2021 shows a surge in grittier streaming biopics, stories that resist easy redemption and leave wounds open. Analysts point to titles like Inventing Anna and Halston, where archival records and fact-checking are built into the viewing experience. Industry insiders warn that the old formula, sanitized scripts, estate approval, and Oscar campaigns, no longer guarantees trust. The demand for transparency has forced studios to reckon with timelines, court documents, and the messiness of real lives. Every new release faces scrutiny, not just from reviewers, but from viewers armed with primary sources and a hunger for the full story. This is a turning tide. The films that once smoothed edges must now answer to the records themselves. Today, biopics still trade messy reality for neat redemption. Studios shape stories to comfort, not to confront. The untold truths remain just outside the frame, more complex, more human, and still unresolved. What we choose to believe shapes not just our heroes, but ourselves. Share your thoughts below.
Deborah Kerr, the versatile cheat. When you think of an actor who has played every possible kind of role in Hollywood, think of Deborah Kerr. She was a British actress whose career was a roller coaster of saintly roles and saucy transformations. However, this diversity earned her a place among the most beloved and the most hated Hollywood actors in history. So what happened? Well, Kerr started her journey as the quintessential English Rose. She graced the silver screen as a prim schoolteacher and a noble princess. Yet beneath that demure exterior lay a desire for roles that would break her free from the shackles of convention. She achieved this dream soon enough when she was found frolicking in the waves with a dashing Burt Lancaster. But did her morals change along with her on-screen persona? This question sparked a public debate that raged on for years. Even among all the controversies, Kerr's acting talent shone through. She was honored with multiple Academy Awards from 1951 to the 1960s. The turning point of Kerr's reputation, however, came when she had a quarrel with her husband. A lover's quarrel with a friend and an ill-fated affair shook the foundation of her personal life. From that point onwards, her acting journey was a mess of broken contracts and missed roles. She did manage to sever ties with MGM, and after that she paved her way for more daring roles. However, she had already gained a negative perception that was hard to escape. Then, a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease forced Kerr to bid goodbye to her life in the US and return to the UK. There still remains a fascinating part of her story. Did you know that within months of her passing, her husband and biographer also passed away? They were all the same age, 86. Hedda Hopper, failed actress, bashful writer. She was one of the most notorious and influential gossip columnists in Hollywood history. Born Elda Furry on May 2, 1885, in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, Hedda Hopper grew up in a modest family. Her father was a butcher, and she was one of 9 children. Elda's upbringing was strict and religious, with her parents instilling in her a strong sense of discipline. As a young woman, Elda left home to pursue a career in acting. She joined a stock theater company and traveled around the country, honing her craft. In 1913, she married actor DeWolf Hopper, who was 27 years her senior. It was during this time that she adopted the stage name Hedda Hopper. Her acting career was modest, and she appeared in a number of silent films, but she never achieved significant success as an actress. Hedda's life took a dramatic turn in the 1930s when she reinvented herself as a gossip columnist. She started writing a column for the Los Angeles Times in 1938, and it quickly became one of the most read and influential columns in Hollywood. Her sharp wit and fearless reporting earned her both fans and enemies. Hedda Hopper's columns were filled with scandalous tidbits about the personal lives of Hollywood stars. She was known for her ability to uncover secrets and wasn't afraid to use her column as a weapon. If a star or studio crossed her, she would retaliate with damaging stories. One of her most infamous feuds was with actress Joan Bennett. When Bennett sued Hopper for defamation, the case was settled out of court, but the feud left a lasting impact on both women. Hopper was also known for her strong political views. She was an ardent anti-communist and used her column to support the Hollywood blacklist during the Red Scare. She accused numerous actors, writers, and directors of being communists or communist sympathizers, ruining many careers in the process. Her involvement in the blacklist made her a highly controversial figure and deepened the animosity toward her. One of the most specific incidents that contributed to her being one of the most hated figures in Hollywood was her role in the outing of actor Montgomery Clift. In an era when homosexuality was taboo, Hopper's public insinuations about Clift's sexuality were seen as cruel and invasive. Her relentless pursuit of such stories showed a lack of empathy and respect for people's privacy. Hedda Hopper's relationships with stars were complex. While she had friendships with some, many others feared her. She wielded enormous power, and her approval or disapproval could make or break a career. This power dynamic created an atmosphere of tension and distrust. Norma Shearer, the spoiled star. A name that resonates with classic Hollywood glamour, Norma Shearer had a life and career filled with both adoration and animosity. Born Edith Norma Shearer on August 10, 1902, in Montreal, Canada, she grew up in a wealthy family. Her father was a successful businessman, but after he faced financial difficulties, the family moved to New York City. Determined to become an actress, young Norma began her journey on the Broadway stage. From Broadway to Hollywood, Norma's undeniable talent and striking beauty soon caught the attention of Hollywood. She moved to Los Angeles and signed with MGM in 1923. Her career started modestly, but her fortunes changed dramatically when she married Irving Thalberg, the legendary MGM producer, in 1927. With Thalberg's influence, Shearer's career soared. She landed prestigious roles and became one of MGM's leading ladies. However, this meteoric rise was marred by accusations of nepotism. Many in Hollywood believed that Shearer's success was due more to her husband's power than her own abilities. This perception of favoritism tainted her accomplishments and created a wave of resentment among peers and the public alike. As her star continued to rise, so did reports of her demanding nature. Shearer was known for insisting on receiving star treatment, which often created friction with colleagues and crew members. Her insistence on perfection, while contributing to her memorable performances, also earned her the label of a diva. These demands did not sit well in an industry already filled with large egos and competitive spirits. Norma Shearer wasn't content to remain typecast in wholesome roles. In the pre-code Hollywood era, she began choosing more provocative parts. Her daring performances in films like The Divorcee, 1930, and A Free Soul, 1931, shocked audiences. While these roles won her critical acclaim, including an Academy Award for Best Actress, they also invited criticism. Many were uncomfortable with her bold portrayals of liberated women, further fueling the dislike among conservative viewers. In particular, her role in The Divorcee was a turning point. She played a woman who, after discovering her husband's infidelity, decides to live life on her own terms. This character's independence and defiance of societal norms were groundbreaking but controversial. While some praised Shearer for her courage, others saw it as a betrayal of traditional values. The death of Irving Thalberg in 1936 marked a significant shift in Shearer's career. Without her husband's powerful influence, she struggled to maintain her top-tier status. This period exposed the fragility of her position within MGM and Hollywood. Critics and detractors felt vindicated, believing her decline proved their suspicions of nepotism. Norma Shearer retired from acting in 1942, leaving behind a complex legacy. She had been a trailblazer in many ways, challenging traditional roles for women on screen. Yet, the allegations of nepotism, her demanding demeanor, and her controversial role choices left a mark. Despite the criticism, Shearer's impact on Hollywood is undeniable. Her willingness to take on challenging and provocative roles paved the way for future generations of actresses. She remains a polarizing figure, remembered both for her groundbreaking work and the controversies that surrounded her career. Veronica Lake, actress with an attitude. With her iconic peekaboo hairstyle, Veronica Lake is a name that conjures images of classic Hollywood allure. Born Constance Frances Marie Ockelman on November 14, 1922, in Brooklyn, New York, she experienced a turbulent childhood marked by the early loss of her father in a ship explosion. Her mother remarried, and the family moved to Miami, Florida, where young Constance began to show an interest in acting. Her striking beauty and enigmatic presence soon opened doors in Hollywood. From stardom to struggles, Lake's breakthrough came with her role in the 1941 film I Wanted Wings, where her distinctive hairstyle became an instant sensation. She quickly rose to stardom, captivating audiences with her roles in Sullivan's Travels, 1941, and This Gun for Hire, 1942. However, behind the glamorous facade, Lake's life was far from perfect. Known for her iconic peekaboo hairstyle, Lake's behavior on set was often described as unprofessional. She clashed with co-stars and directors, earning a reputation for being troublesome. Her unwillingness to cooperate and frequent disputes made her difficult to work with, causing friction and frustration among her peers. One notable incident involved actor Joel McCrea, her co-star in Sullivan's Travels. McCrea reportedly refused to work with her again, citing her difficult behavior. These clashes were not isolated events, but rather a recurring theme in her career. Her temperament and lack of professionalism alienated many in the industry. As her star rose, so did her personal problems. Veronica Lake struggled with alcoholism and mental health issues, which began to take a toll on her reliability and performance. Her erratic behavior, both on and off set, started to overshadow her talent. These struggles led to missed opportunities and damaged her professional relationships. Lake's personal life was marked by tumultuous relationships and financial difficulties. She married and divorced several times, each relationship adding to her emotional turmoil. Her battle with alcoholism further exacerbated her mental health issues, making it increasingly difficult for her to maintain her career. As her career waned, her erratic behavior and inability to maintain professional relationships contributed to her negative image. By the late 1940s, the roles began to dry up. Hollywood, always quick to move on, had little patience for stars who caused more trouble than they were worth. Lake's once promising career was in sharp decline. Desperate for work, she took on less prestigious roles and even attempted a stage career, but her reputation preceded her. Audiences and critics alike were unforgiving of her past indiscretions. The woman who had once been a symbol of Hollywood glamour was now struggling to make ends meet. In the 1950s, Lake's fortunes took an even darker turn. She was arrested for public drunkenness and faced numerous legal and financial problems. Her life became a tragic tale of a fallen star unable to reclaim her former glory. In her later years, Veronica Lake worked as a waitress in New York City, a far cry from her days as a Hollywood star. She wrote an autobiography, Veronica, in 1969, hoping to set the record straight and gain some financial stability. Sadly, she passed away from hepatitis and acute kidney injury on July 7, 1973, at the age of 50. Veronica Lake's legacy is a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of fame and the harsh realities of Hollywood. Her beauty and talent made her a star, but her personal demons and professional difficulties led to her downfall. She remains a cautionary tale of how quickly one can fall from grace in the cutthroat world of show business. Susan Hayward, stubborn alcoholic. A fiery redhead with a commanding presence, Susan Hayward was one of Hollywood's most compelling actresses. Born Edith Mariner on June 30, 1917 in Brooklyn, New York, she grew up in a working-class family. Her early life was marked by hardship, but her determination to succeed was evident from a young age. Hayward's beauty and ambition led her to the world of modeling, and soon after, she found herself in Hollywood, auditioning for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Although she didn't get the part, it opened doors for her in the film industry. Hayward's breakthrough came in the early 1940s with roles in films like Beau Geste, 1939, and Reap the Wild Wind, 1942. Her performances garnered attention, and she quickly rose to fame. However, behind her success, Hayward was known for her temperamental nature. Her fiery temper and clashes with directors and co-stars became notorious in Hollywood. Her strong-willed personality often led to on-set conflicts, creating a challenging environment for those around her. One notable incident involved director Henry Hathaway, with whom she worked on several films. Their clashes were legendary, with both personalities being equally strong-willed. Despite the tension, Their collaborations often resulted in powerful performances, showcasing Hayward's undeniable talent. Yet, these frequent conflicts contributed to her reputation as difficult to work with. As Hayward's career progressed, her personal struggles began to overshadow her professional achievements. She battled with alcoholism, which significantly impacted her behavior and reliability. Her struggles with alcohol were well known in Hollywood, and they often led to erratic behavior both on and off set. These issues further tarnished her reputation and made it difficult for her to maintain professional relationships. Gene Tierney, the unpredictable. Renowned for her ethereal beauty and remarkable talent, Gene Tierney was one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Born on November 19, 1920 in Brooklyn, New York, Tierney was raised in a wealthy family that nurtured her artistic inclinations. She attended prestigious schools and traveled extensively, which helped shape her sophisticated persona. Her stunning looks and acting ability soon caught the attention of Hollywood scouts, and she made her film debut in the early 1940s. Tierney's rise to stardom was swift, with notable roles in films like Laura, 1944, and Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. Her performances were critically acclaimed, and she quickly became one of the industry's leading ladies. However, beneath the surface of her successful career, Tierney struggled with severe mental health issues, including depression and schizophrenia. These battles significantly impacted her life and career, leading to erratic behavior that often made her unreliable professionally. Her unpredictable behavior on set created numerous challenges for directors and co-stars. There were instances where she would become difficult to work with, causing delays and tensions during productions. This unpredictability made her a less desirable choice for filmmakers who needed dependable stars for their projects. Despite her undeniable talent, these issues often overshadowed her work, affecting her professional reputation. Tierney's personal life was also fraught with difficulties. Her struggles with mental health were well documented and became a subject of public interest. This scrutiny further contributed to a negative perception of her, despite her many achievements. The public's fascination with her private life often eclipsed her professional accomplishments, casting a shadow over her legacy. Despite these challenges, Tierney's performances continued to captivate audiences. Her beauty and talent were undeniable, and she left an indelible mark on the film industry. Yet, her story remains a poignant reminder of the toll that mental health struggles can take on even the brightest of stars. Gene Tierney's legacy is one of both triumph and tragedy, highlighting the complexities of life behind the glamour of Hollywood. Joan Fontaine, sibling rivalry. Born Joan de Beauvoir de Havilland on October 22, 1917 in Tokyo, Japan, to British parents, Joan Fontaine had a childhood marked by contrasts. Alongside her older sister Olivia de Havilland, Joan experienced early life in Japan and then moved to California, where their parents divorced. This early instability shaped Joan's resilience and ambition. In the 1930s, both sisters embarked on acting careers, with Olivia initially finding success in Hollywood. Joan followed suit, adopting her stage name to differentiate herself. Her breakthrough came with the film Rebecca, 1940, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, where she showcased her talent and earned critical acclaim. This launched her into stardom and paved the way for further successes in the 1940s, including an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Suspicion, 1941. Despite her achievements, Joan Fontaine's journey in Hollywood was marred by a strained relationship with her sister Olivia, which began in their youth and persisted throughout their lives. Their rivalry, exacerbated by professional competition and personal differences, often played out in the public eye. This tension, fueled by media scrutiny and industry gossip, contributed to Joan Fontaine being perceived as aloof or difficult by some of her colleagues. While she maintained a dedicated fan base and continued to work in film and television, the perception of her as a contentious figure lingered. Joan Fontaine's career trajectory reflects not only her talent and resilience, but also the complexities of navigating fame and familial rivalry in the golden age of Hollywood. Orson Welles, Industry Cold War. A cinematic genius, Orson Welles occupies a unique place in Hollywood's history, celebrated for his visionary direction, yet ensnared in a tumultuous relationship with the industry that often cast him among its most divisive figures. Renowned for his versatility and profound acting prowess, Welles soared to fame, but it was his daring ambition and boundary-pushing creativity that frequently clashed with studio expectations. Welles cemented his legacy with Citizen Kane, a film hailed as a masterpiece by critics and a testament to his directorial brilliance. Yet, its release marked a turning point in Welles's career, polarizing audiences and studios alike. Despite initial acclaim, subsequent directorial efforts such as It's All True and The Magnificent Ambersons encountered severe setbacks, marred by studio interference that left Welles disillusioned with the Hollywood system. Navigating through disappointments, Welles turned to independent projects, occasionally triumphing with films like Touch of Evil. However, his career trajectory became a cautionary tale, emblematic of the industry's challenges for filmmakers who dared to defy convention. Critics argue that Welles, despite his immense talent, squandered opportunities due to perceived self-indulgence and clashes with collaborators. Welles's legacy is as complex as his career. He passed away in 1985 at the age of 70, leaving behind a body of work that continues to inspire and provoke debate. His life serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between artistic vision and industry expectations in the world of cinema. Jennifer Jones' Forbidden Affair. Born Phyllis Lee Isley on March 2, 1919 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jennifer Jones emerged as a prominent figure in classic Hollywood despite a controversial reputation that marked her career. Raised in a supportive family environment, Jones showed early promise in the arts, particularly in dance and theater. Her interest in acting deepened during her college years, leading her to pursue a career in entertainment. Jones's breakthrough came when she was discovered by Hollywood mogul David O. Selznick, who not only signed her to a contract, but also groomed her for stardom. Under Selznick's guidance, she adopted the stage name Jennifer Jones and began her ascent in the film industry. Her early roles, characterized by a delicate beauty and emotional depth, earned her critical acclaim and a devoted fan base. Despite her initial success, Jones's career was overshadowed by personal controversies and professional challenges. She became entangled in a scandalous affair with Selznick while married to actor Robert Walker, leading to public scrutiny and a tarnished public image. Her roles in films like Duel in the Sun, 1946, and Portrait of Jenny, 1948, garnered mixed reviews, with critics often pointing to her perceived lack of range and depth as an actress. Jones's reputation as one of the most disliked actresses of her era stemmed not only from her personal scandals but also from industry perceptions of her acting abilities. Some critics accused her of relying too heavily on her looks and Selznick's influence rather than developing her own artistic identity. As Hollywood evolved, Jones struggled to adapt, further contributing to her contentious legacy. Despite the controversies and criticisms, Jennifer Jones remains a fascinating figure in Hollywood history, symbolizing both the allure and pitfalls of fame. Her story serves as a reminder of the complexities and challenges faced by actresses navigating the golden age of cinema. Betty Hutton, on-set drama queen. Born Elizabeth June Thornburg on February 26, 1921 in Battle Creek, Michigan, Betty Hutton had a tumultuous childhood marked by poverty and family instability. At a young age, she found solace in performing, singing, and entertaining, which eventually led her to pursue a career in show business. Hutton's big break came when she was discovered by a talent scout and signed by Paramount Pictures in the early 1940s. Known for her high-energy performances and comedic timing, she quickly rose to fame with roles in musical comedies such as The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, 1944, and The Perils of Pauline, 1947. Despite her initial success, Betty Hutton's career was marred by several factors that contributed to her unfavorable reputation in Hollywood. One of the primary reasons was her reportedly difficult personality and volatile behavior both on and off the set. She was known for being demanding, temperamental, and often clashed with directors, co-stars, and studio executives. Additionally, Hutton's personal life was turbulent, marked by multiple marriages and divorces, which often played out in the public eye. Her struggles with alcoholism and emotional instability further exacerbated her reputation, leading to difficulties in maintaining professional relationships and consistent work in the industry. Critics and colleagues alike pointed to her erratic behavior and challenging demeanor as reasons for her unpopularity among peers and audiences. Despite her undeniable talent and early successes, Betty Hutton's career eventually waned, overshadowed by her reputation for being difficult to work with and her personal struggles.
In the late-night world Johnny Carson built, a single slurred word could send NBC executives scrambling, and America could not look away. From Dean Martin needing subtitles in 1976 to Oliver Reed challenging the host at his own desk, the most drunken moments on Carson's stage changed television forever. Late night became a place for unscripted, unforgettable surprises. But what actually happened when Hollywood's biggest stars pushed live TV to the breaking point? Let's count down the 5 nights that forced late night to confront its wildest and most unforgettable chaos. Dean Martin never needed an introduction, but in 1976 he arrived on The Tonight Show with a glass of whiskey in hand and a reputation for making inebriation look like high art. The line between act and reality blurred as Martin greeted the crew backstage with a slurred wisecrack, then strolled out under the studio lights. Johnny Carson, reading the moment with his trademark grin, leaned into the chaos. When Martin's answers began to tumble into one another, Carson deadpanned, "We are going to need subtitles for this one." The audience's laughter came in 2 waves. First, the thrill of seeing a legend off script, then the awkwardness as Martin's words drifted further from the questions. Some viewers cringed, but most could not look away. NBC executives watching from their offices understood the trade-off. Martin's charisma made the spectacle feel sophisticated, almost glamorous. Ratings did not dip. If anything, they held steady, proof that America was willing to forgive a little sloppiness for a night with the king of cocktail comedy. For network brass, Martin's tipsy charm was a calculated risk. The audience, split between delight and discomfort, kept tuning in. Carson's quick wit and gentle teasing turned what could have been a disaster into a moment of late-night legend. Controlled chaos, perfectly timed for a country learning to love its celebrities with all their flaws. On this night, the rules of live television bent around Dean Martin's swagger, and the audience learned that sometimes the best punchlines come with a chaser. Oliver Reed didn't just bring a drink to The Tonight Show, he brought a storm. In the mid-1970s, Reed arrived backstage already deep into brandy, his reputation for wildness preceding him. Crew members on headset whispered warnings as Reed challenged a production assistant to a wrestling match before the show started. The tension backstage spilled over the moment Reed took his seat beside Johnny Carson. What began as a rambling anecdote about filming in Spain quickly veered off course. Reed, eyes blazing, slammed his glass on the desk and declared, "Let us see who is stronger, Johnny." Without warning, Reed grabbed Carson's hand, launching into an arm wrestling contest live on national television. The force of Reed's grip sent a wave of liquor across Carson's papers, drenching cue cards and leaving a spreading stain on the polished desk. For a split second, Carson froze, his legendary composure tested. The control room sprang into action. Director Bobby Quinn barked orders through headsets, cueing the cameras to pivot away from the chaos. Staff edged closer, ready to intervene if things turned ugly. Carson managed a tight smile, using his desk as a shield, and gently joked, "I usually save this for after the show." The segment ended early, cut to commercial with barely a warning. In the aftermath, crew debated whether Reed should ever be invited back. When the episode aired in syndication, Reed's most unhinged moments were trimmed away, but the memory lingered. For those in the studio, it was a lesson in how quickly live television could go from unpredictable to nearly uncontrollable. All it took was one guest, one drink too many, and a host who refused to lose his cool. Richard Harris arrived at NBC's Burbank studio with a whiskey glass in hand, having come straight from a bar on Sunset Boulevard. The crew watched as he settled onto the Tonight Show couch, still buzzing from the night's earlier rounds. Harris insisted on performing Shakespeare, waving his drink and declaring, "I am the king of the world," before launching into Hamlet. But the words tangled in his mouth, each line more slurred than the last. Laughter rippled through the audience, some amused, others uneasy, as Harris struggled to finish a single verse. Johnny Carson, sensing trouble, leaned in with a gentle tease. Carson said, "I think the bard might want his royalties back." The room relaxed. Carson's warmth turned embarrassment into a shared human moment. Behind the scenes, the control room braced for fallout. Producers huddled after the show, reviewing staff notes and audience reactions. According to later interviews, this was the night the show's leadership decided enough was enough. Production assistants were quietly tasked with monitoring the green room, counting drinks, and alerting producers if anyone crossed an invisible line. The story goes that a 2-drink limit became the new gospel, never written down, but enforced with a nod and a watchful eye. Harris's poetic collapse didn't just make for wild television. It forced The Tonight Show to trade improvisation for a little more control, rewriting the rules of late night one backstage memo at a time. Capote's 1972 appearance on The Tonight Show delivered a spectacle that left NBC scrambling. Capote arrived already unsteady, his reputation as a brilliant raconteur quickly giving way to a slow-motion unraveling. The first few minutes offered flashes of his legendary wit, but soon his words began to tangle, drifting from clever to caustic to nearly incomprehensible. Carson, always a tactician, tried to steer the conversation back to safe ground, but Capote's responses grew sharper and less coherent. At home, viewers shifted in their seats, some transfixed, others mortified. The next morning, the NBC mailroom filled with letters and phone calls. Standards and Practices staff tallied what they later described as one of the largest complaint surges of the decade, with hundreds of viewers demanding answers about how such a scene had made it to air. Inside NBC, executives faced a dilemma. The outrage was real, but so was the data. Nielsen ratings showed a spike in viewership immediately after Capote's segment. The paradox could not be ignored. The more unpredictable the guest, the more Americans tuned in. Memos circulated between programming and legal, weighing the risks of live television against the undeniable pull of chaos. Some called for a tape delay or stricter guest screening. Others argued that moments like these were exactly what kept late night alive. Capote was never invited back. For the network, the episode became a case study in the high-wire act of live broadcasting, a night when embarrassment and success arrived hand in hand, and when the boundary between disaster and ratings gold had never looked thinner. Elizabeth Taylor's appearance on The Tonight Show in the early 1980s arrived with the weight of Hollywood royalty and the unpredictability of live television. Backstage, a round of champagne with staff and fellow guests set the mood, a private celebration that followed her into the studio lights. The moment Taylor took her seat, the air in the studio changed. She greeted Johnny Carson with a dazzling smile, her words tumbling out with a warmth that bordered on giddy. Conversation drifted from her latest film to her storied marriages, but the real drama unfolded in the unscripted spaces. Taylor, at ease and a little tipsy, leaned in with playful banter, forgetting for a moment that millions were watching. She flirted openly with Carson, then lost her place mid-story and dissolved into laughter. The audience watched, half in awe, half holding their breath. Behind the scenes, crew members exchanged glances, unsure if they were witnessing a disaster or a late-night miracle. Carson's subtle signals, a raised eyebrow and a gentle redirect, kept the segment from spinning out. Instead of embarrassment, the night delivered a rare glimpse of vulnerability beneath the glamour. In that brief stretch of live television, Elizabeth Taylor became more than a screen legend. She was human, unpredictable, and unforgettable. Johnny Carson didn't just survive unpredictable guests, he made managing chaos look like an art form. His first move was silence. When a segment teetered on disaster, Carson would let the moment hang, pausing just long enough to draw every eye his way. That beat of quiet, sometimes less than a second, gave him the upper hand and let the audience reset. Next came the eyebrow lift, a barely there arch that signaled to viewers and sometimes to the guest that things were veering off script. No words, just a look, inviting everyone in on the secret. When conversation drifted toward the edge, Carson steered it back with a quick joke or a gentle change of subject. This deflect and reset trick kept the show moving and guests from embarrassment. If things got physical, like with Oliver Reed's arm wrestling stunt, Carson subtly shifted behind his desk, using it as both shield and stage. That small movement drew a line without a single word. Through it all, Carson's teasing stayed light, never mean. A soft jab, a shared laugh, and the guest's dignity remained intact. Producers later summed it up as a simple rule: rescue, not ridicule. Every pause, glance, and quip was a calculated move to keep live television thrilling but safe, proving that true hosting is as much about what you don't say as what you do. Live television still courts chaos, just with fewer cocktails and more viral clips. Carson's era proved that unpredictability hooks audiences, for better or worse. Today, authenticity, unfiltered and unscripted, remains television's greatest risk and reward. The camera's always rolling. What we reveal now shapes what we remember tomorrow. What's your take?
For 30 years, Johnny Carson smiled on camera while America laughed along. Off camera, he whispered to Ed McMahon about guests he thought were monsters. Here are the 9 guests he privately called the worst of Hollywood's golden age. Joan Crawford's chilling demands. When Joan Crawford showed up for The Tonight Show in 1970, the studio felt it right away. She wasn't just a guest, she was an operation. Hours before cameras rolled, staff got a 4-page memo from her team. The note spelled out the chair angle, the exact lighting setup, and even the temperature of the studio, 67 degrees. Not 66, not 68. Crew joked about bringing a thermometer just to survive the night. Crawford walked in 3 hours early with her own makeup crew. That move stung, since the show already had Emmy-winning artists on staff. But she brushed past them as if they didn't exist. A stagehand later recalled, "Everything had to be hers, on her terms. Our team might as well have been invisible." Johnny greeted her warmly on set, but behind the curtain things took a darker turn. A young production assistant delivered a glass of water to Crawford's dressing room. The girl had only been on the job a few weeks. Crawford exploded. Witnesses said she called the assistant brainless and shouted that she belonged in a brothel, not a studio. The crew froze in the hallway, listening. The assistant ran out in tears. Crawford demanded she be fired. The producer refused, and the tension never left the building that night. Once the taping began, viewers saw the perfect Hollywood star. Hair set, smile bright, posture flawless. Every word seemed casual, but it wasn't. A producer remembered, she rehearsed every line, every laugh, every look. None of it was real. During breaks, she sat in silence, face hard as stone. The moment the red light blinked back on, the mask returned. Carson struggled. He was famous for pulling the best out of his guests, but Crawford gave him nothing. After the show, he leaned to Ed McMahon and muttered, "I've interviewed corpses with more personality. Years later, when Christina Crawford's book Mommy Dearest exposed alleged abuse inside the Crawford home, Johnny didn't act surprised. A friend recalled him, nodding quietly. "I saw who she was in those few hours. I believe every word." That night in 1970, the audience thought they saw old Hollywood grace. Carson and his crew saw something else, a legend with ice in her veins who left the room colder than the 67 degrees she demanded. Frank Sinatra's bullying power. He could walk onto The Tonight Show and light up the room. The audience cheered, Johnny smiled, and the cameras adored him. But once the red light switched off, another side showed up. Carson never forgot it. Sinatra rolled into the studio like he owned the place. He didn't come alone. 8 men usually followed, and none of them looked like showbiz assistants. Crew members said it felt more like security detail for a mob boss than an entourage for a singer. They'd spread through the halls, leaning on doors, watching every move. A cameraman later said, "It felt like being under surveillance." The tension grew worse once Sinatra hit the stage. During one taping in the early 70 seconds, a floor manager gave him the standard 3-minute warning. Every guest got it. Sinatra didn't care. He yanked the man by his tie and hissed, "Nobody tells me when I've got 3 minutes. I'll go on when I'm ready." The manager, a Korean War veteran, was left shaken. Johnny watched the whole thing from the monitor backstage. He nearly canceled the segment. Ratings were the only reason the singer made it to air that night. Sinatra's arrogance stretched further. He canceled appearances at the last second, sometimes when he was already inside the building. One night, he simply announced he wasn't in the mood. Crews scrambled, guests got reshuffled, and Carson fumed. Carson's dislike sharpened after one commercial break. Sinatra made a loud remark about a female staffer's looks. Johnny's face dropped. He cut in, cold as ice. "We don't talk about my staff that way here." Crew said. The room went silent. Sinatra didn't expect to be checked, not by anyone, certainly not by Carson. When cameras came back, the smiles returned, but the tension stayed. From that moment, Johnny changed how often Sinatra appeared. Normally, Carson avoided interfering in bookings, but after the insult and the tie incident, he gave direct orders, no more than once a year. A rare move for the host. Orson Welles defies show rules. He had the voice of a king and the ego to match. When he showed up at The Tonight Show in the mid-1970s, Johnny Carson expected a big personality. What he didn't expect was a man who acted like the show belonged to him. Welles started by rejecting every question Carson's writers prepared. The team had carefully drafted notes, but Welles crossed out each line with a pen and handed back a blank sheet. He told them their work was pedestrian. That left Carson with no roadmap for the interview. For most hosts, it would have been a disaster. For Carson, it was a headache he never forgot. Once on the couch, Welles turned into a one-man act. Scheduled for a neat 7 minutes, he stretched his segment to nearly 25. Johnny tried his usual signals, leaning forward, glancing at the clock, tapping his pencil, but Welles didn't budge. Crew members said he looked right at Carson's cues and chose to ignore them. The price was steep. 2 other guests got bumped off the show that night. The trouble didn't stop there. Welles ordered water but refused to address assistants directly. Instead, he waved toward them and said things like, "Tell the girl I need more." When the cameraman adjusted angles, he stood up mid-show and tried to direct them himself. A producer later recalled, "He actually walked to the camera and started explaining shots like he was on a movie set." Johnny was livid. Carson valued discipline and timing. The Tonight Show lived on tight control, and Welles blew holes through it. Between stories about Europe, Shakespeare, and Hollywood politics, he drifted in every direction. Editing was a nightmare. He thought rules were beneath him, one staffer said. What frustrated Johnny most wasn't just the chaos, it was the arrogance. Welles had genius, no one denied it, but he used it like a shield, brushing off the people working around him. Carson confided later, "Genius doesn't excuse everything. You don't hijack someone else's show." Bette Davis cross-examines Carson. The first sign of trouble came before the cameras even switched on. Bette Davis, booked in the late 1970s, demanded whiskey in her dressing room. That wasn't unusual for the era, but staff said she downed glass after glass before walking out to the couch. The result wasn't charm, it was confrontation. Once on set, Davis treated the stage like a courtroom. If another guest tried to speak, she cut them off. She often turned her back on whoever sat next to her. A talent coordinator remembered, she couldn't stand when someone else got the laughs. You could see her seething, ready to jump in and grab control. Carson tried to keep the conversation light. Davis had no interest. She fired questions back at him as if she were cross-examining a witness. At one point, she even grilled him about his own career choices. Ed McMahon later joked that no one should face Bette Davis without a lawyer present. Behind the curtain, the behavior was sharper. Staff who worked those shows recalled Davis using racial slurs and sexist remarks. A makeup artist said she insulted her, shaking hands, snapping that she looked like she was recovering from a bender. Another crew member remembered Davis tearing into a cue card operator, calling him slow and useless. That last moment forced Carson to break his usual rule. He rarely intervened with guests backstage, but Davis pushed him. He stepped in quietly and told her, "On this show, we speak to everyone with respect, or we don't speak at all." Witnesses said she froze, startled that someone finally checked her. She backed down, but only for that day. Her sharp tongue didn't end with staff. When episodes paired her with younger female guests, she sometimes dismissed them mid-conversation. During one taping, she talked over a rising star's story and then told Johnny, "Why waste airtime on amateurs?" The room fell silent. Carson admired talent, and Davis had plenty, but he disliked cruelty. After her final appearance in the early 1980s, he reportedly told his producer, "That's the last time. Life's too short to be flogged on my own stage." Mickey Rooney's disturbing behavior. Studio staff braced themselves whenever Mickey Rooney appeared in the mid-1970s. He was supposed to be a nostalgic guest, Hollywood's one-time box office king. Instead, his visits made people uneasy. Female assistants were the first to complain. Rooney grabbed hands when water was delivered, held wrists too long, and asked if the women were married. One production assistant later said, "We'd ask not to be assigned to him. You knew it wouldn't stay professional." The pattern became so common that coordinators quietly rotated younger women away from his dressing room. Alcohol only magnified the problem. Crew recalled at least 3 shows where Rooney slurred words or lost track of his stories. In 1977, he launched into an anecdote about Judy Garland that quickly spiraled into comments Johnny had to cut off mid-sentence. During the break, Carson leaned to his producer and asked, "Is he drunk, or is this just who he is now?" Guests sitting next to him weren't safe either. On one taping, a young actress promoting her first film endured a string of off-color remarks from Rooney. Carson noticed her discomfort and, after the show, personally apologized. A longtime director remembered, "I'd never seen Johnny so embarrassed by a guest." Generational excuses didn't help. Rooney, born in 1920, came from an era when certain behavior toward women was brushed aside. But Carson drew a clear line. Respect mattered on his set. After repeated incidents, he insisted Rooney's appearances be taped in the daytime, not live at night. The change gave the crew a chance to edit if things went off the rails. Zsa Zsa Gabor's Diva Chaos. By the late 1970s, staff on The Tonight Show had a running joke. If Zsa Zsa Gabor was booked, clear the schedule. Nothing ever ran on time when she came through the door. Her demands started days before taping. Coordinators received lists that looked like parodies. The dressing room must be kept at 74 degrees. Fresh orchids only, no carnations. Perrier water with 3 ice cubes exactly. Her own lighting technician flown in at the show's expense. And no female guests under 40 allowed on the same episode. A talent coordinator later admitted, "We thought it was a prank the first time we saw it." Refusing her requirements wasn't an option. If something was missing, she simply wouldn't come out of her room. Once, she delayed taping for nearly an hour because the foundation in the makeup department wasn't her preferred brand. A shouting match erupted between her and the head artist until Johnny himself picked up the phone. He told her, "Ja, honey, you look beautiful already. We've got a show to do." She came out, but only after staff were sent rushing to Beverly Hills to buy the product. On set, the audience saw the glamorous Hungarian star with the playful accent. Backstage, staff scrambled. Lighting crews stayed on edge. Assistants double-checked temperatures with thermometers. Stagehands remembered hiding out of sight to avoid being barked at. A cameraman said, You could feel everyone stiffen when she walked in. The chaos bled into the show itself. One night, she arrived 40 minutes late, then scolded Carson for mispronouncing her name during the introduction. Johnny snapped afterward. Next time she wants on, tell her it's The Tonight Show starring Zsa Zsa Gabor and I'll play her sidekick. Despite the exhaustion she caused, she kept being invited back. The reason was simple. When cameras rolled, she worked. Gabor had the kind of stage presence that guaranteed ratings. Carson tolerated her, but barely. After one particularly drawn-out taping, he muttered to a producer, "I'd rather interview a cat. At least the cat wouldn't need 3 assistants and special lighting." Shelley Winters explodes on air. She was supposed to be an easy guest. 2 Oscars, decades of experience, and a lifetime of stories. Instead, she became one of the most unpredictable figures ever to sit across from Johnny Carson. Writers prepared light questions about her films. Winners threw them out. She'd launch into fiery monologues that had nothing to do with the topic. One night in the mid-1970s, Carson asked about her latest project. She pivoted to a 5-minute rant about government corruption. Johnny tapped his pencil, glanced at the clock, and tried to cut in. She kept going. A director later said, "With Shelley, you didn't guide the conversation. You waited for her to run out of steam." Her volatility wasn't limited to politics. Winters had a temper that sometimes turned physical. On a British talk show, she famously threw a glass of whiskey into Oliver Reed's face after one of his crude remarks. That reputation followed her onto The Tonight Show. Stagehands quietly removed items from the set before she arrived. Anything throwable disappeared from arm's reach. Carson faced the brunt of her outbursts more than once. She interrupted him mid-question, challenged his jokes, and once accused him of not respecting serious issues. Crew members recalled Johnny's strained smile, his usual charm replaced with visible discomfort. The audience rarely knew the stress behind the curtain. They saw an eccentric star speaking her mind, but staff felt the tension. Producers whispered reminders into Johnny's earpiece to pivot quickly if Winters went off track. More than once, they had to scrap pre-planned segments because she consumed the time with unscripted tirades. Yet Carson never dismissed her entirely. He disliked the chaos, but he recognized authenticity when he saw it. Winters wasn't playing a part. She cared about every word she said, even if it hijacked the show. After one fiery appearance criticizing the Vietnam War, Johnny told her producer, "I may not want her on vacation with me, but at least she means it." Jane Russell's offensive backstage acts. Early 1970s Tonight Show bookings brought Jane Russell back into the spotlight. On screen, she still carried the image of a 1940s icon, the glamorous star of The Outlaw and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Backstage, her behavior clashed with the professional atmosphere Johnny Carson demanded. Staff first noticed her strong political views spilling into conversations. Carson, a moderate Republican, kept his show neutral. Russell didn't. She used breaks to push hardline opinions on whoever was nearby. A producer later said, "She'd corner crew or guests and unload." Johnny hated that. More troubling were her comments toward LGBTQ staff. Accounts from employees at the time described her refusing to let a gay makeup artist touch her face. She asked for a replacement without hesitation, embarrassing the crew in front of colleagues. Another coordinator remembered her making remarks about not working next to certain types, code everyone understood. The problem grew bigger when Rock Hudson's name came up. Hollywood insiders knew his private life, even if the public didn't. Russell reportedly refused to appear on the same episode as him, making derogatory comments that reached Carson's ear. He valued loyalty to his team, and Hudson had been a friend of the show. That refusal cut deep. One night in 1973 sealed her fate. During a commercial break, Russell made dismissive comments about civil rights legislation. Crew nearby overheard her remarks. They circulated quickly, and Johnny learned about it before the taping ended. According to a former producer, he didn't raise his voice, but the decision was made. She wouldn't be invited back. Carson rarely banned stars. Even when he disliked guests, ratings often kept the door open. Russell was different. Her opinions didn't just clash with Carson's politics, they humiliated staff and insulted people Johnny respected. After that year, her name disappeared from the booking sheets. Jerry Lewis crosses the line. By the mid-1970s, Jerry Lewis had become one of the most divisive guests on The Tonight Show. His public image was spotless. He was the comic genius behind The Nutty Professor and the face of annual telethons that raised millions for muscular dystrophy research. But Carson and his staff saw another side. Lewis walked onto the set with a kind of swagger that irritated Johnny right away. He interrupted jokes, hijacked questions meant for other guests, and once even reached over to adjust Carson's tie on air. That single gesture might have looked playful to viewers, but it broke one of Johnny's unspoken rules. No one touched him without permission. A producer later explained, Lewis knew that. He did it anyway, just to show control. His treatment of staff left a deeper mark. Lewis rarely used names. He called people camera guy, makeup girl, or hey you. Senior crew members who had been with the show for years were reduced to functions. During one rehearsal, a cameraman coughed. Lewis stopped everything, turned, and shouted that the man was breathing like an amateur. Staff recalled the room falling silent. The cameraman had allergies. Johnny, watching, was furious. Another time, Lewis mocked a young assistant for handing him the wrong brand of water. He waved the bottle in the air, joking that he'd fire the help if it were his show. For Carson, who valued how guests treated the lowest-ranking staffer, that was unforgivable. The contradiction bothered Johnny most. America saw Lewis cry on telethons about his love for children. Off-camera, he belittled crew members and undermined colleagues. Carson told a producer, "That act makes my skin crawl." By the early 1980s, Lewis's appearances came to a halt. After one particularly combative segment, Johnny gave his executive producer a clear order: never again. Very few stars landed on Carson's permanent blacklist. Jerry Lewis did. Years later, at a private dinner, someone asked Carson about him. Johnny didn't hesitate. In a town full of phonies, he stands out as truly hateful. Carson's blacklist exposed. By the 1980s, people close to Johnny Carson knew he kept mental notes about guests who pushed too far. He never announced it publicly, but offstage he spoke bluntly about the names he wouldn't forget. Crew called it his quiet blacklist. Carson wasn't quick to judge. He tolerated egos, nerves, and even bad interviews. But there were limits. He told his director more than once, "How they treat the assistants tells me everything I need to know." That test became the dividing line. Stars who belittled staff, shouted at cue card holders, or insulted makeup artists often ended up on that private list. As the years passed, the names stacked up. Joan Crawford with her 4-page demands, Frank Sinatra grabbing a manager by the tie, Orson Welles bulldozing through segments, Bette Davis tearing into crew, Mickey Rooney crossing lines with women, Zsa Zsa Gabor delaying shows over makeup, Shelley Winters hijacking tapings with tirades, Jane Russell humiliating staff over politics, and Jerry Lewis mocking everyone in his path. Each one had been tolerated once, sometimes twice, but Carson didn't forget. Friends who visited him in the later years recalled how candid he became. One producer said, he'd laugh about some guests, but when certain names came up, he'd go stone cold. In those conversations, Carson admitted he had deliberately cut appearances short, or, in rare cases, blocked a return entirely. The blacklist wasn't about ratings. Carson knew big names drew viewers, but he still placed behavior above numbers. That decision stood out in an industry where fame usually excused everything. A longtime staffer summed it up, "Johnny had nothing to gain by calling them out. He was already at the top. If he said someone was cruel, you could believe it." In the 1990s, after he retired, more stories surfaced in books and biographies that matched what Carson had whispered years earlier. Christina Crawford's Mommy Dearest echoed what Johnny saw in Joan. Reports of Sinatra's violent streak lined up with what the crew remembered. Even Lewis's reputation for arrogance became public knowledge as colleagues shared similar accounts. Carson never wrote the list down. He didn't need to. His crew remembered who was welcomed back and who quietly disappeared from the booking sheets. In his own quiet way, Johnny had already judged them, and his verdict carried weight inside Hollywood.
In the golden age of Hollywood,
Where glamour ruled and movie stars shined brightly on the silver screen, there existed a darker underbelly of ruthless ambition, bitter rivalries, and fiery tempers. Behind the dazzling smiles and polished exteriors, some of Hollywood's biggest names made enemies left and right, whether with co-stars, directors, or even their own families. In this video, we'll unravel the stories of the most hated women in old Hollywood, from the ruthless Joan Fontaine to the ambitious Anne Baxter and the scandalous Zsa Zsa Gabor. We'll delve into their notorious feuds, power struggles, and the controversies that left them despised both on and off set. How did Joan Fontaine's lifelong rivalry with Olivia de Havilland spill onto the screen? What sparked the enmity between Anne Baxter and Bette Davis during All About Eve? And why was Zsa Zsa Gabor's name synonymous with scandal? Joan Fontaine. Fontaine's most infamous rivalry was with her sister, Olivia de Havilland. Their feud was legendary, stretching back to childhood and intensifying when both pursued careers in Hollywood. It became an open secret that the two sisters despised each other, and their contentious relationship often played out in public. In 1942, the tension came to a head at the Academy Awards. Fontaine and de Havilland were both nominated for Best Actress, Fontaine for Suspicion, and de Havilland for Hold Back the Dawn. When Fontaine was announced as the winner, she brushed off de Havilland's attempt to congratulate her, leaving her sister humiliated and fuming. De Havilland never forgave Fontaine for this slight, and the sisters barely spoke for decades afterward. The rivalry was so intense that even Joan's autobiography was titled No Bed of Roses, in which she criticized de Havilland for trying to steal her roles and their mother's affection. Fontaine's feud with de Havilland wasn't the only relationship she struggled with. While working on Rebecca, Fontaine found herself at odds with her co-star, Laurence Olivier. Olivier had wanted his then-wife, Vivien Leigh, to be cast in the lead role, but Hitchcock chose Fontaine instead. As a result, Olivier was openly hostile toward Fontaine, frequently belittling her performance and criticizing her acting skills. Fontaine later recalled that Olivier was relentlessly cruel to her throughout the production. Her relationship with Hitchcock was similarly strained. Hitchcock's unconventional method of drawing out her insecurities to heighten her vulnerability on screen left Fontaine feeling manipulated and insecure. She described Hitchcock as ruthless and believed he took pleasure in keeping her on edge during filming. Despite these tensions, Fontaine's performances in Hitchcock's films earned her critical acclaim, firmly establishing her as a leading lady in Hollywood. Fontaine's reputation for being difficult extended to other co-stars as well. On the set of Jane Eyre, she clashed with Orson Welles, whom she described as pompous and intolerable. Her strained relationships with other leading ladies like Vivien Leigh and Ginger Rogers further cemented her image as a prim princess unwilling to share the limelight. Olivia de Havilland. While Joan Fontaine may have been despised by her sister, Olivia de Havilland didn't earn any love from Joan either. Born just 15 months apart, Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine's rivalry permeated Hollywood for nearly a century. In fact, de Havilland once quipped, "Our feud isn't a feud, it's a brawl," setting the tone for her turbulent relationship with her sister. De Havilland is best known for her roles in classics like Gone with the Wind, 1939, where she played the gentle Melanie Hamilton Wilkes, and her double Oscar-winning performances in To Each His Own, 1946, and The Heiress, 1949. Despite her public image as a gracious and composed star, de Havilland was known to be fiercely competitive. Her rivalry with Fontaine reached a boiling point in 1941 when she lost the Best Actress Oscar to her sister. De Havilland was visibly upset when Fontaine won for Suspicion, 1941. 2 years later, she got her revenge by taking home her first Oscar for To Each His Own, 1946. De Havilland further cemented her dominance by winning a second Oscar for The Heiress, 1949. According to biographer Charles Hyam, de Havilland once remarked, "Joan is very bright and sharp and quick-witted, but she's also very self-centered." De Havilland's combative nature wasn't limited to her sister. She famously feuded with Errol Flynn, her co-star in 8 swashbuckling adventures, including The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, and Captain Blood, 1935. Flynn reportedly made unwanted advances towards de Havilland, calling her a cold fish for rejecting him. He later wrote in his autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, "Livy and I were like the sea and the shore, drifting slowly apart." Her battles weren't only with actors, but also with directors. She often clashed with Michael Curtis, who directed her in The Adventures of Robin Hood and Dodge City, 1939. Curtis was notorious for his harsh treatment of actors, and de Havilland was no exception. She once walked off the set in protest of Curtis's behavior, refusing to return until the studio intervened. One of de Havilland's most significant battles, however, was with Warner Brothers. In 1943, she filed a lawsuit against the studio, challenging the legality of their practice of extending actors' contracts for time spent on suspension. Known as the de Havilland Law, her victory not only won her freedom from her restrictive contract, but also revolutionized the Hollywood studio system, granting actors greater creative control. Gloria Graham. With her trademark sultry voice and alluring smile, Gloria captivated audiences as the femme fatale in films like The Big Heat, 1953, and In a Lonely Place, 1950. But behind the smoldering allure was a troubled actress whose life was riddled with scandals, making her one of old Hollywood's most controversial figures. Graham's off-screen life was often more dramatic than her roles. During the production of In a Lonely Place, her erratic behavior and disdain for her co-star Humphrey Bogart became the talk of the town. Director Nicholas Ray, who was also Graham's husband at the time, caught her in bed with his 13-year-old son, Anthony. The scandal led to their divorce in 1952, and Graham married Anthony Ray 10 years later. This notorious relationship alienated many of Graham's colleagues, including her former husband and director Nicholas Ray. Despite the turmoil, Graham continued to land prominent roles throughout the 1950s. Her performance in The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952, earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, though her win was overshadowed by rumors of her behavior on set. Co-star Lana Turner reportedly refused to work with Graham again, describing her as unprofessional and a manipulative diva. Graham's relationship with directors was just as volatile. On The Big Heat, she clashed with Fritz Lang, who described her as impossible to direct due to her constant demands for script changes. Her behavior became so intolerable that Lang allegedly considered replacing her, but producer Robert Arthur insisted she stay. Despite the tension, Graham delivered one of her most iconic performances as the doomed Moll, Debbie Marsh. Further controversy erupted during the production of Oklahoma, 1955, where Graham played Ado Annie. Co-star Eddie Albert claimed that she was a nightmare to work with, frequently arriving late and demanding special treatment. Her performance was widely criticized, with New York Times critic Bosley Crowther calling her miscast and unconvincing. Miriam Hopkins. She was one of the most successful actresses of the pre-Code era. Miriam Hopkins, known for her roles in films like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931, Designed for Living, 1933, and The Story of Temple Drake, 1933. Her beauty and talent made her a sought-after leading lady, but her temperamental nature and fierce competitiveness made her difficult to work with. Hopkins had a notorious reputation for being arrogant and demanding, often clashing with directors and co-stars alike. One of her earliest disputes was with director Ruben Mamoulian on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mamoulian recalled that Hopkins was volatile and challenging, requiring constant reassurance about her performance. Despite their strained relationship, Hopkins delivered a remarkable performance that solidified her status as a rising star. Her rivalry with Bette Davis remains one of Hollywood's most infamous feuds. It began in 1939 when both actresses were cast in The Old Maid, an adaptation of Edith Wharton's novella. Hopkins was known for her theatrical style, while Davis brought a more naturalistic approach. Their contrasting acting methods led to intense on-set friction, with each actress trying to outdo the other. Davis later admitted to deliberately overacting in scenes with Hopkins to steal the spotlight. The feud escalated in 1943 when they were cast together again in Old Acquaintance. Hopkins insisted on redoing scenes multiple times, much to the frustration of director Vincent Sherman. In one memorable instance, Davis couldn't contain her rage and shook Hopkins violently during a scene, nearly injuring her. Sherman noted, "They hated each other with a vengeance." Hopkins' arrogance also put her at odds with leading men like Frederick March and Herbert Marshall. On Designed for Living, directed by Ernst Lubitsch, Hopkins constantly vied for attention with March and co-star Gary Cooper. Lubitsch found her behavior exasperating, describing her as the most difficult actress he had ever worked with. Hopkins's insecurities often led her to demand script changes and more screen time, much to the dismay of her co-stars. In The Story of Temple Drake, Hopkins played a scandalous role that brought her both acclaim and controversy. Her portrayal of the sexually assaulted Temple was considered too explicit, and the film was banned in several states. Hopkins thrived on the attention, but her risque performance also earned her the ire of conservative critics and audiences. Mae Clarke. Clarke's career was marked by both triumph and turmoil. Best known for her roles in The Public Enemy, 1931, and Frankenstein, 1931, Clarke's rise to stardom was marred by conflicts with co-stars and directors that earned her a reputation as one of Hollywood's most challenging actresses. Her most iconic moment came in The Public Enemy, where James Cagney famously smashed a grapefruit into her face. The scene catapulted Clarke to fame, but behind the scenes, her relationship with Cagney was far from amicable. Cagney later recalled that Clarke was difficult to work with due to her temper and demands for special treatment. Despite this, they went on to star together in another film, Lady Killer, 1933, where tensions again flared. Clarke's fiery personality wasn't limited to Cagney. During the production of Frankenstein, she clashed with director James Whale, refusing to film certain scenes unless changes were made to the script. Boris Karloff, who played the monster, described Clarke as headstrong and stubborn, often disrupting the shooting schedule with her demands. However, her performance as Elizabeth Lavenza was well received, and Frankenstein became one of the most influential horror films of all time. Off-screen, Clarke's relationships with other actresses were equally strained. She reportedly had a contentious rivalry with Anne Dvorak, her co-star in Three Wise Girls, 1932, over billing and screen time. Dvorak once quipped, "May was always ready for a fight, even when no one was interested." Their rivalry was exacerbated when Clarke accused Dvorak of trying to steal her role in The Penguin Pool Murder, 1932. Despite her early success, Clarke's career began to decline in the mid-1930s. Her uncooperative behavior and penchant for conflict made her unpopular among studio executives. In one notable instance, she clashed with director George Stevens on the set of The Housekeeper's Daughter, 1939, walking off the set after an argument over her lines. Stevens eventually convinced her to return, but the incident solidified her reputation as unreliable. Clarke's turbulent personal life also contributed to her fall from grace. Her first marriage to F. Scott Ames ended in divorce after just 2 years, and her second marriage to Stevens Bancroft lasted even less. By the early 1940s, Clarke's star had dimmed significantly, and she was relegated to supporting roles and bit parts. Anne Baxter. Anne's portrayal of the ambitious Eve Harrington in All About Eve, 1950, remains one of cinema's most iconic performances. But Baxter's role as the conniving understudy wasn't far removed from her real-life persona, as she garnered a reputation for ambition and manipulation both on and off the screen. Baxter's rise to fame was swift. By 23, she had already won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Razor's Edge, 1946. But it was her role in All About Eve that solidified her as a star. Her on-screen rivalry with Bette Davis mirrored their off-screen tension. Davis, who played the aging actress Margot Channing, found Baxter's performance to be too over the top and accused her of trying to upstage her. Davis once quipped, "She should have been called Anne Backstabber instead of Baxter." The tension between the two led to a bitter feud throughout the production. Baxter demanded equal billing with Davis, a move that infuriated Davis and further strained their relationship. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz had to intervene repeatedly to keep the peace, describing their interactions as volatile and charged with animosity. Baxter's ambition wasn't limited to her rivalry with Davis. She frequently clashed with directors and co-stars. On the set of The Ten Commandments, 1956, she had a tumultuous relationship with director Cecil B. DeMille. Baxter, who played Nefertiti, reportedly demanded numerous script changes to give her character more screen time. DeMille found her demands exasperating, but ultimately acquiesced to some of her requests, believing her presence would enhance the film's commercial appeal. Her co-star Charlton Heston, who played Moses, found her behavior unpredictable and temperamental. Heston noted in his autobiography that Baxter was often difficult to work with and prone to mood swings, which disrupted the production. Baxter's reputation for being manipulative also extended to her personal life. Her marriage to actor John Hodiak ended in divorce in 1953, with Hodiak citing her controlling nature as a primary reason. Her second marriage to Randolph Galt was similarly troubled, with Galt describing Baxter as impossible to live with due to her constant demands and erratic behavior. Gene Tierney. Tierney's troubles began early in her career. Despite her undeniable talent and beauty, she quickly developed a reputation for being challenging to work with. During the production of Laura, director Otto Preminger found her demanding and overly concerned with her appearance. He insisted on multiple takes to achieve the right look, which frustrated Tierney. Despite their clashes, Tierney delivered one of her most iconic performances, solidifying her status as a leading lady. Her relationship with Preminger soured further during the making of Whirlpool, 1949, where Tierney portrayed a kleptomaniac undergoing hypnosis. Preminger described Tierney as difficult and unpredictable, noting that her struggles with depression often affected her performance. Nonetheless, Tierney's nuanced portrayal received critical acclaim, though the tension between her and Preminger ensured they never worked together again. Tierney's behavior also strained her relationships with co-stars. On the set of Leave Her to Heaven, she clashed with Cornel Wilde, whom she reportedly found unprofessional and arrogant. Wilde later described Tierney as moody and distant, often refusing to speak to him between scenes. Despite the tension, Leave Her to Heaven became a major success, earning Tierney an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. Another co-star who felt Tierney's wrath was Dana Andrews, with whom she shared the screen in Laura and the Iron Curtain, 1948. Andrews claimed that Tierney's perfectionism often led to heated arguments on set, describing her as a perfectionist to the point of exhaustion. He later admitted that her mental health struggles may have contributed to her erratic behavior. Tierney's insecurities about her appearance also made her demanding with makeup artists and costume designers. Edith Head, the legendary costume designer, noted that Tierney was obsessed with every little detail of her wardrobe, often demanding last-minute changes. Makeup artist Ben Nye recalled that Tierney would frequently refuse to leave her dressing room until every eyelash was perfectly placed. Tierney's personal life was equally tumultuous. Her first marriage to Oleg Cassini was marked by infidelity and financial woes, ultimately ending in divorce in 1952. Her subsequent relationship with Prince Ali Khan, the ex-husband of Rita Hayworth, was also rocky, with the prince's family reportedly disapproving of Tierney. Paulette Goddard. Goddard's rise to stardom began with her marriage to Charlie Chaplin in the early 1930s. While Chaplin's influence helped launch her career, her talent soon shined through in roles like the Gammon in Modern Times and Hannah in The Great Dictator. However, her marriage to Chaplin was rocky, marked by infidelities and professional rivalries. The two divorced in 1942, and Chaplin later remarked that Goddard was ambitious to a fault. Her role in So Proudly We Hail brought her acclaim, but also conflict. Goddard allegedly sabotaged her co-star Veronica Lake's performance, insisting on script changes that would favor her character. Lake later accused Goddard of conniving to steal scenes and using her charm to manipulate directors. Despite the tension, Goddard received an Academy Award nomination for her performance. Goddard's ambitious nature often put her at odds with her co-stars and directors. On the set of Unconquered, 1947, she clashed with director Cecil B. DeMille over creative control. DeMille wanted her character to appear more vulnerable, while Goddard insisted on portraying a stronger woman. Their arguments became so heated that DeMille reportedly threatened to replace her. Her relationship with co-star Fred MacMurray in Standing Room Only, 1944, was also strained. MacMurray found Goddard controlling and dismissive, claiming she often undermined his suggestions for their scenes. However, Goddard brushed off his criticism, stating, "In this business, you've got to look out for yourself." Susan Hayward. Hayward's early career was marked by determination. Born Editha Mariner, she came to Hollywood from Brooklyn in 1937, vying for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Although she didn't get the part, she secured a contract with Warner Brothers, eventually moving to Paramount, where she starred in Bo Gesta, 1939, and Reap the Wild Wind, 1942. However, her uncompromising attitude often put her at odds with directors and co-stars. One of her most notorious feuds was with Bette Davis during the production of Where Love Has Gone, 1964. Hayward and Davis clashed over creative control, with each actress demanding top billing and rewrites to enhance their roles. Their rivalry became so intense that director Edward Dmytryk had to shoot their scenes separately to avoid confrontations on set. Davis reportedly called Hayward a pushy, demanding redhead, while Hayward found Davis pretentious and insufferable. Hayward's conflicts weren't limited to Davis. On The Lusty Men, 1952, she had a tumultuous relationship with director Nicholas Ray. Ray described her as uncontrollable and moody, often refusing to take direction and insisting on rewriting her lines. Co-star Robert Mitchum also found her difficult, calling her a temperamental spitfire. Her abrasive personality also surfaced on the set of The Conqueror, 1956, where she starred alongside John Wayne. Wayne and Hayward were both known for their strong personalities, leading to frequent arguments about their scenes. Wayne later remarked that Hayward was like handling dynamite, volatile and unpredictable. Zsa Zsa Gabor. The Hungarian-born socialite and actress, Zsa Zsa was known as much for her lavish lifestyle and glamorous image as for her acting career. While she appeared in films like Moulin Rouge, 1952, and Lily, 1953, her flamboyant personality and penchant for controversy overshadowed her roles, earning her a reputation as one of Hollywood's most notorious divas. In 1989, Gabor was arrested for slapping Beverly Hills police officer Paul Kramer after he pulled her over for a traffic violation. The highly publicized trial ended with Gabor serving 3 days in jail and paying fines and compensation. The incident solidified her image as a temperamental diva, and she made the most of the publicity, quipping, "He deserved it." Gabor's diva behavior extended to her co-stars and directors as well. On the set of Queen of Outer Space, 1958, she clashed with director Edward Burns over her character's costumes, insisting on wearing more glamorous outfits than the role required. Burns later remarked, "Zsa Zsa was always demanding special treatment and refusing to listen to direction." Her feuds weren't limited to directors. Gabor often found herself at odds with fellow actresses, particularly Shelley Winters and Eva Gabor, her own sister. Winters described Gabor as outrageous and selfish, claiming that she would throw tantrums just to get attention. Meanwhile, Zsa Zsa's relationship with Eva was strained by jealousy and competition, leading to frequent arguments both on and off set. In her later years, Gabor became known for her eccentric public appearances and notorious legal battles. She married her 9th husband, Frederick Prince von Anhalt, in 1986, and the two remained together until her death. Their relationship was marked by scandal, with von Anhalt often making outlandish claims about his heritage and adopting adult men to carry on his royal lineage.
Zsa Zsa Gabor was married 9 times. She was divorced 7 times, and one marriage was annulled. She wrote in her autobiography, "All in all, I love being married, I love companionship, I love cooking for a man, simple things like chicken soup and my special Dracula's goulash from Hungary, and spending all my time with a man. Of course, I love being in love, but it is marriage that really fulfills me. But not in every case." So how come Gabor seemed to have terrible luck with love? Well, we must first journey through her life to figure out all the little things that make up the great Zsa Zsa Gabor. Before the fame. Zsa Zsa Gabor, born Sari Gabor on February 6, 1917 in Budapest, Hungary, emerged into a world of privilege and refinement. She was the middle daughter of Vilmos Gabor, a soldier and entrepreneur, and Jolie Gabor, née Tillemann, a socialite known for her beauty and wit. Raised alongside her sisters Magda and Eva, both destined for fame in their own right, Zsa Zsa grew up in an environment where elegance and social standing held paramount importance. From an early age, Zsa Zsa was immersed in a world that prized culture and sophistication. Educated in prestigious private schools in Budapest, she mastered multiple languages, Hungarian, German, and later English, giving her a cosmopolitan edge that would prove invaluable in her future international career. Surrounded by European art, music, and literature, she developed a refined taste that would characterize her persona in later years. Zsa Zsa's upbringing instilled in her a deep appreciation for beauty and femininity, qualities she would later amplify on the global stage. Her early years in Hungary nurtured dreams of adventure and glamour beyond its borders, setting her on a path to seek fame and independence far from her European roots. Zsa Zsa's education was tailored to her family's high social status, emphasizing etiquette and the arts. Her exposure to European culture broadened her worldview and shaped her into a woman of elegance and poise. From a young age, she exuded a magnetic charm and a confidence that would become her trademarks. As a teenager, Zsa Zsa's aspirations transcended the boundaries of Budapest. Her dreams were fueled by a desire for a life filled with luxury, fame, and excitement.
She envisioned a future where she would captivate audiences on the silver screen, propelled by her intelligence, beauty, and flair for drama. Zsa Zsa Gabor's early years laid a solid foundation for her future endeavors, blending privilege with ambition. Her journey from the splendor of Budapest to the allure of Hollywood would embody a relentless pursuit of fame and a determination to carve out a place for herself in the spotlight. Entering into Hollywood. Zsa Zsa Gabor's foray into Hollywood began in the early 1950s, marking the start of a glamorous and often controversial career. Arriving from Europe with a captivating presence, she quickly made an impact with her unique blend of old-world charm and modern allure. Her debut in Lovely to Look At, 1952, introduced audiences to her elegant persona, setting the stage for a series of roles that showcased her sophistication and comedic talent. In We're Not Married, 1952, Zsa Zsa portrayed a socialite entangled in a comedic marital mix-up, demonstrating her ability to navigate both humor and glamour on screen. These early roles established her as a versatile actress with a magnetic screen presence, paving the way for further opportunities in Hollywood. Throughout her career, Zsa Zsa Gabor became synonymous with the epitome of Hollywood glamour. One of her standout performances was in Moulin Rouge, 1952, directed by John Huston. In this Technicolor spectacle, she mesmerized audiences as Jane Avril, a celebrated can-can dancer, embodying the vibrancy and allure of Parisian nightlife during the Belle Époque. In Touch of Evil, 1958, directed by Orson Welles, Zsa Zsa Gabor brought her charm to the noir genre, playing a seductive nightclub performer. Her role added depth to the film's dark narrative, showcasing her versatility beyond comedic roles and solidifying her status as a captivating presence on screen. Beyond film, Zsa Zsa Gabor made frequent and memorable appearances on television, where her wit and larger-than-life persona charmed audiences. Her television engagements further cemented her reputation as a cultural icon of elegance and sophistication during Hollywood's golden era. Cultivating an image. Zsa Zsa Gabor built an image in the media that epitomized Hollywood glamour, elegance, and a touch of scandal. From her early days in Hollywood to her later years as a beloved celebrity, she exuded a magnetic charm that captivated both fans and critics alike. Known for her impeccable style and larger-than-life personality, Zsa Zsa became a fixture on the red carpet and in society columns. Her trademark platinum blonde hair, flawless makeup, and extravagant jewelry contributed to her iconic look, which she maintained with meticulous attention to detail. Whether attending premieres or social events, she effortlessly commanded attention with her poise and sophistication. Beyond her film roles, Zsa Zsa Gabor's reputation extended into the realm of socialite and celebrity. She frequented high-profile gatherings and cultivated relationships with prominent figures in entertainment, politics, and business. Her presence at exclusive events and her knack for witty repartee made her a sought-after guest and a darling of the paparazzi. Her marriages and personal life often made headlines, adding to her allure as a tabloid sensation. Zsa Zsa's love affairs and glamorous lifestyle fueled media fascination, perpetuating her image as a woman who lived boldly and unapologetically. Despite occasional controversies, she navigated the public eye with grace and humor, further endearing herself to fans who admired her resilience and spirit. Trouble with the law. On June 14, 1989, in Beverly Hills, California, Zsa Zsa Gabor found herself in a highly publicized legal entanglement after an incident involving Beverly Hills police officer Paul Kramer. It began with a routine traffic stop on Olympic Boulevard, where Gabor was accused of slapping Officer Kramer. Subsequently, she faced a trial 3 months later, during which a jury convicted her of the assault on Kramer. In addition to the assault charge, she was found guilty of driving without a valid license and possessing an open container of alcohol, a flask of Jack Daniels, in her luxurious Rolls-Royce valued at $215,000. However, the jury acquitted her of the charge of disobeying Kramer when she drove away from the traffic stop. Following the trial, on October 25, 1989, Beverly Hills Municipal Judge Charles G. Rubin delivered a sentence that included 3 days in jail, fines, restitution totaling $12,937, 120 hours of community service, and a mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Despite initially contesting the conviction, Gabor eventually decided to drop her appeal on June 14, 1990, agreeing to serve her sentence. Ultimately, she served a 3-day jail term from July 27 to July 30, 1990, although she refused to participate in the community service requirement. In addition to legal troubles, Zsa Gabor also became embroiled in a protracted feud with fellow actress Elke Sommer, stemming from an incident dating back to their appearance together on Circus of the Stars in 1984. The conflict escalated over the years, culminating in a multi-million-dollar libel lawsuit filed by Sommer against Gabor and her husband by 1993. The court ruled in favor of Sommer, awarding $3.3 million in combined general and punitive damages, further complicating Gabor's public image and financial affairs. Beyond legal battles and interpersonal conflicts, Gabor faced financial setbacks, notably linked to investments with Bernie Madoff's firm. In January 2009, it was reported that forensic accountants estimated her losses could amount to as much as $10 million due to investments managed by a third party associated with Madoff's operations, underscoring the extent of her financial challenges in later years. Gabor's saga with love and romance. Zsa Gabor, renowned for her glamorous Hollywood career, was equally famous for her tumultuous love life that kept the tabloids buzzing and audiences captivated. Her romantic journey unfolded like a series of dramatic episodes, each marriage a chapter in a saga of love, scandal, and public fascination. Her first notable marriage was to Conrad Hilton, the hotel magnate, a union that began amidst the backdrop of World War II's uncertainties. Their relationship was a whirlwind of passion and conflict, marked by Hilton's alleged gambling habits and Zsa's high society lifestyle. Despite the allure of their glamorous facade, their marriage faced challenges that ultimately led to a highly publicized separation. Following her divorce from Hilton, Zsa's next prominent partner was the charismatic British actor, George Sanders. Their union promised Hollywood allure and European sophistication, but behind the scenes, Sanders' reputation as a charming womanizer clashed with Zsa's own flirtatious nature. Their marriage, often tumultuous, played out in the public eye with headlines of infidelity and passionate disputes, capturing the public's imagination. In her quest for love and stability, Zsa then married Herbert Huttner, a Wall Street lawyer and investor known for his financial acumen. Their union, initially celebrated amidst society circles, soon soured amid reports of financial disagreements and conflicting priorities. Zsa's high-profile social engagements and Huttner's demanding career created rifts that strained their relationship, leading to a bitter divorce that once again thrust her into the media spotlight. Not one to shy away from the allure of romance, Zsa's fourth marriage was to Joshua S. Cosden Jr., an oil heir known for his lavish lifestyle. Their brief marriage was marked by rumors of excessive partying and incompatible lifestyles, with Zsa's desire for stability clashing with Cosden's penchant for nightlife and social extravagance. Their whirlwind romance ended swiftly with a divorce that underscored the tumultuous nature of Zsa's romantic pursuits. Throughout her life, Zsa Gabor navigated the highs and lows of love with a flair that matched her on-screen persona. Her marriages, characterized by passion, scandal, and public scrutiny, solidified her status not only as a Hollywood icon, but also as a symbol of enduring allure and the complexities of fame. Her love life, often turbulent yet undeniably captivating, remains a testament to her larger-than-life personality and the indelible mark she left on popular culture. Her secret affairs. Zsa Gabor's romantic escapades extended beyond her marriages, punctuated by notable affairs that added fuel to her tabloid fame and cemented her reputation as a captivating socialite. One of her most talked-about liaisons was with Porfirio Rubirosa, the infamous Dominican diplomat and playboy known for his charm and wealth. Their affair was a whirlwind of luxury and scandal, captivating the media with tales of extravagant gifts and jet-setting escapades. Despite Rubirosa's reputation as a notorious womanizer, Zsa found herself irresistibly drawn to his charisma and the allure of his glamorous lifestyle. Another prominent figure in Zsa's love life was Richard Burton, the charismatic Welsh actor known for his legendary romance with Elizabeth Taylor. Zsa and Burton's affair added a layer of intrigue to Hollywood gossip columns, fueled by their mutual passion for the limelight and their shared penchant for drama. Their brief but intense relationship captured the public's imagination, showcasing Zsa's ability to attract and captivate leading men of the silver screen. In addition to these high-profile affairs, Zsa Gabor's love life included dalliances with a roster of wealthy businessmen, European aristocrats, and Hollywood celebrities. Her ability to navigate the complex terrain of love and fame, often simultaneously, underscored her status as a woman who embraced life with passion and audacity. The media and public reactions. Zsa Gabor's romantic entanglements were often intertwined with public scandals and intense media scrutiny, shaping both her career trajectory and public image in Hollywood. Her affair with Porfirio Rubirosa, the dashing diplomat and playboy, sparked headlines for its extravagance and controversy. The media eagerly covered their lavish lifestyle, from luxury vacations to extravagant gifts, portraying Zsa as a femme fatale ensnared in a whirlwind romance with a notorious figure. The scandalous nature of their affair added a layer of intrigue to her public persona, casting her as a woman unafraid to court controversy in pursuit of passion and luxury. Similarly, Zsa's relationship with Richard Burton, amidst his turbulent romance with Elizabeth Taylor, garnered intense media attention. Their affair captivated gossip columns and fueled tabloid speculation about their shared love of drama and the spotlight. The media portrayed Zsa as a seductive siren, capable of captivating even the most charismatic leading men of Hollywood, further enhancing her reputation as a captivating socialite and romantic figure. Throughout her love life, Zsa Gabor's relationships were scrutinized by the media, which often sensationalized her personal affairs to boost circulation and captivate readers. Her image as a glamorous yet controversial figure prone to scandal and indulgence became a cornerstone of her public persona. Despite the occasional backlash, Zsa navigated the media circus with charm and wit, leveraging her romantic exploits to maintain her status as a beloved celebrity and enduring cultural icon. The media coverage of Zsa Gabor's love life, marked by scandal and sensationalism, both enhanced and complicated her career in Hollywood. While some viewed her as a symbol of glamour and allure, others criticized her for the controversies that surrounded her personal affairs. Nevertheless, her ability to command attention and navigate the complexities of fame ensured that she remained a fixture in the public eye, leaving a lasting legacy as a woman who lived boldly and unapologetically in pursuit of love and luxury. Impact on her career. Zsa Gabor's career in Hollywood was profoundly impacted by the scandals and controversies surrounding her personal life, which often overshadowed her professional achievements and shaped her public image. The intense media scrutiny of her romantic escapades, from high-profile marriages to scandalous affairs, contributed to a narrative that portrayed Zsa as more than just a glamorous actress. Her image as a socialite and femme fatale, perpetuated by tabloid coverage of her love life, sometimes eclipsed her talents as an actress and entertainer. While Zsa Gabor's magnetic persona and European charm initially propelled her into the spotlight, the scandals surrounding her personal affairs occasionally overshadowed her film and television career. Despite appearing in notable films like Moulin Rouge and Touch of Evil, her public persona as a scandalous figure often garnered more attention than her on-screen performances. The controversies and media coverage surrounding her marriages, particularly those marked by public divorces and allegations of infidelity, reinforced a narrative of Zia as a woman who lived extravagantly and unapologetically. This image, while adding to her allure as a Hollywood personality, sometimes posed challenges to her professional credibility and public perception. Throughout her career, Zsa Gabor navigated the dual role of celebrity and tabloid sensation with a mix of grace and defiance. While her scandals occasionally affected her standing in Hollywood, her resilience and ability to reinvent herself ensured that she remained a beloved figure in popular culture. Her enduring legacy as a symbol of glamour and extravagance continues to fascinate audiences, underscoring the complex interplay between personal life and public image in the world of entertainment. The beginning of the end. On November 27, 2002, Zsa Gabor experienced a life-altering event when she was involved in a serious automobile crash on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. As a front-seat passenger, the collision left her partially paralyzed, necessitating her reliance on a wheelchair for mobility in the years that followed. Despite the physical challenges brought on by the accident, Gabor continued to persevere through subsequent health setbacks. In the years following the crash, Gabor faced multiple health crises. She survived strokes in both 2005 and 2007, requiring intensive medical interventions and surgeries to manage her condition. In 2010, she endured another health setback when she fractured her hip, necessitating emergency surgery for a successful hip replacement procedure. The challenges to Gabor's health persisted into the following decade. In August 2010, she was admitted to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center in serious condition, at one point receiving last rites from a Catholic priest due to the severity of her condition. Despite the dire circumstances, Gabor's resilience shone through once again as she battled through the health crisis and ultimately survived. In 2011, Gabor faced another critical medical decision when doctors made the decision to amputate her right leg above the knee to save her life from a severe infection. The procedure was a necessary but difficult step in her ongoing medical journey, highlighting the extent of her health struggles and the bravery with which she confronted them. Throughout 2011, Gabor experienced a series of medical emergencies that required hospitalization, including periods where she fell into a coma, further underscoring the fragility of her health and the ongoing challenges she faced. Despite these hardships, Gabor's fighting spirit and the support of her loved ones and medical professionals enabled her to navigate these crises with determination. On February 8, 2016, just 2 days after celebrating her 99th birthday, Gabor was rushed to hospital due to breathing difficulties. She was diagnosed with a lung infection related to her feeding tube and scheduled for surgery to have it removed, reflecting the ongoing complexities of managing her health in her later years. In April 2016, amidst her ongoing health battles, it was reported that Gabor's husband, Prince von Anhalt, was making arrangements for them to relocate to Hungary in anticipation of her 100th birthday. This move was in accordance with Gabor's wishes to return to her homeland and spend her remaining years there, symbolizing her enduring connection to her roots despite the challenges she faced in her later life.